How's it going? My name is Aaron.
And I'm Adam.
And this is Seeking Media Productions. And today we're going to be talking about Resident Evil Village.
So Resident Evil, a very popular survival horror game, dating way back in 1996, PlayStation era. It has been going for a lot of changes in the way it was formatted, basically adapting to the times of the industry.
Originally, this franchise started out as a fixed camera system, primary third-person survival game, and then decided to change gears. Resident Evil 4, which was a universally praised and celebrated game for its over-the-shoulder system, and primarily focused on an action-based thriller. But of course, with multiple sequels down the line, eventually the franchise lost favor and was in desperate need of new revitalization, which it found in Resident Evil 7.
So you played basically Resident Evil games primarily between the two of us.
That's true.
And with the sudden shift in the perspective how the game is, how does Resident Evil 7 differ from the past iterations?
Well, first and foremost, with Resident Evil 7, the game actually ended up becoming a first-person shooter that felt more intimate, with its main focus primarily going back towards its staple, living in the horror genre. This was very much a very claustrophobic and intense, nitty-gritty, in-your-face, nightmare-inducing game that really dived deep into what I really love about a horror game franchise.
It's quite weird when, at the time when this game was announced, a competing rival studio, Konami, they were developing their own revamped version of Silent Hill.
Yeah.
Back in the very Italian anticipated title, known as Silent Hills.
Oh man, I really wish that one had turned out real well, but I guess that's where Resident Evil 7 actually came in and scratched that itch that we were all waiting for, that Silent Hills never unfortunately had the chance to give us.
Yeah, well, that transpired to the success of Resident Evil for yet again revamping the franchise, and now we have Resident Evil 8, which is also known as Resident Evil Village.
Now, with Resident Evil Village, it continues the story that was left off in 7, which centered around a new protagonist in the name of Ethan Winters, a man who was hell-bent on trying to save his wife, Mia, who went missing in the New Orleans area. Well, after surviving the horrors of the mutated Baker's family and the monstrous molded creatures that stood in his way, Ethan and Mia decided to relocate into the Eastern European village area where they could hopefully restart their lives, and this time with a new infant daughter by the name of Rosemary. But unfortunately, things don't last for too long, at least in blissful times anyway, as the franchise staple main character, well, at least one of them, Chris Renfield, comes back into their lives and ends up murdering Mia and abducting Rosemary, sending Ethan onto another new quest in order to reclaim his infant daughter, and at the same time trying to brave the horrors of the village and all the crazy monsters that stands in his path.
So, basically, how, from the story standpoint and Village, is there, how does the layout compare to other games? Does it, take it to an even more direction from past iterations?
I feel as though Resident Evil Village definitely it increases what was already given to us in Resident Evil 7. Again, this particular game is a first-person shooter, and it's but I feel as though this one definitely borrows a little bit more heavily off of what was already done in Resident Evil 4 by turning away a little bit further from the horror angle and adding more action adventure aspects into it. And tiling down a lot of those crazy, intense, more horror moments in favor for more fast-paced shooting aspects.
the enemy types is like some of those complaint from Resident Evil 7, despite its more intimate nature. How do they differ here?
Well, in Resident Evil 7, the primary antagonist in that game was really just the Baker's family and the molded creatures that they had within their household. It was very much a self-contained story within maybe one or two locations, primarily really just the Baker household itself. Well, I feel as though this is where where Village basically increases and actually is a little bit better in the concept of adding more variety. A lot of the monsters or creatures in this particular game are mostly revolved around the Romanian aspect of folklore with vampires and werewolves, or in this game, lycans.
Like classic Hollywood.
Yeah, classic Hollywood creatures, but with a new Resident Evil twist that centers around the whole concept of a biohazard gone wrong. So you definitely get that sense of a gothic horror as angle in this, which is definitely something that's very juicy, and I was able to really sink my teeth into it. But I do have to say that I feel as though the AI system with a lot of the creatures just aren't as well tuned as they were in Resident Evil 7, with more on the lines that in Resident Evil 7, the enclosed claustrophobic aspect of not having too many items at your disposal, and Ethan being a novice survivalist in this case, or it's not really a survivalist at all. He's just an average guy with basic skills, not be able to really understand how to really defend himself, and only having access to maybe one or two different kinds, or just a few kinds of weapons in that game, and really helped increase the atmosphere that you really wanted to see. With 7, he's trained up. He spent some time trying to learn how to really defend his family, so you get a larger variety of new tools and skills and resources at your disposal, which in theory and actually does increase the playability of what you're able to do with that character, but also diminishes the threat value of the creatures themselves.
Especially specific story points and how they go about explaining it.
Yeah. Well, see, when it comes across with a lot of the characters that you meet throughout the story, a lot of them feel very kind of generic and classic cliche monster villain throwaway characters. I'm really primarily focused on when you look at the characters of the Four Lords, Alcida Dimitrescu, or Dimitrescu, however you want to pronounce that, a character who I feel as though the internet completely exploded and really loved. Where that character, and they have other characters like Donna Beneviento and Heisenberg and Salvador. Well, those characters in theory are pretty cool and interesting, and I would love to have actually had spent more time with them and to understand them as characters and play around with their environments. It just doesn't feel as though a lot of care went to actually being us to expose ourselves and really savor the time we had with them, in favor of trying to hash in a lot more concepts that was going to help tie it into the rest of the series. Again, I was really anticipating, from having played Resident Evil 7, which I felt was a great game in and of itself. Resident Evil, I was really anticipating what Village was going to bring to the Horizon. I mean, I like when it comes to, we were talking about the production value, the usage or the continuous usage of the RE engine, which completely revitalized and made this series look a lot more photorealistic and increases your senses on the environment and the Gothic architecture that you brought into here. In theory, makes it feel as though it's very immersive. But I feel as though there's so many other aspects, like when you look at the expansion of the game, the game's map, some things just don't feel as though it was executed in the way that you would have actually wanted to feel them. I.e., I'm talking about certain level designing. Certain levels such as the Castle Dimitrescu and House Benevento, those were welcome additions to the Resident Evil Pantheon. I couldn't get enough playing within these particular areas, and I wanted more of them, but they were too short, and it does not give me a chance to savor everything that they had to offer, especially with a lot of the characters and the enemies environments and puzzle designs that was within them. But then again, you get so much time spent on certain aspects within the other part of the maps, like the Salvador's reservoir and the Heisenberg factory. They had interesting concepts within them, but I feel as though they just were poorly executed at the end of the day, and it was just too much of bad aspects of game design that went into them that nobody really wanted to necessarily spend too much time on.
I remember you saying that some of the issues with those two levels in particular, like there's a form of repetition.
Yes, it's like I feel as though this is actually more on the case of the factory level, which I feel as though is mostly too focused on multiple enemies being thrown your way, and a lot of them being taken down the exact same way as well. And I feel as though so much more could have been done. I feel as though with the factory area, that was definitely a place where you could have had a lot more puzzle design and traps that could have been that Ethan should have been gone up against. But alas, it wasn't really done in that way. And then when I look at the characters, going back on them, the main antagonist, other than the four lords, the character of Mother Miranda, though in concept, having her being tied into the deep lore and mythology of the Resident Evil series was a cool idea and concept. But I feel as though because we don't have too much of a time to spend with her in herself in this story, kind of feels at least a hole being that I felt needed to have been filled, and it just wasn't.
Like some of the callbacks to past games, like you just said with Miranda, particularly with the Mother Miranda's character. A lot of this with the Eastern European setting, it makes you feel like you're at sometimes very reminiscent to Resident Evil 4.
Especially when you look at on the way that you handle storing and move around guns and other ammunition and resources with the briefcase system, and of course the system given to us with the bartering system with the Duke. That was a really cool character that also makes you rethink the character in Resident Evil 4, and those concepts are cool when you first meet them, but at the same time it also kind of depletes their unique factor within this game in themselves. At the end of the day, I feel as though there are just way too many concepts where I feel as though they left too much on the cutting room floor, and really could have and really should have focused on bringing to us a full adapted storyline and game development for this game to stand alone from the original predecessor in Resident Evil 7. So at the end, so I ended up feeling that this was just a good experience and outing.
How does it compare to past Resident Evil games?
Again, like I could definitely see myself playing this game multiple times, but I do feel as though some of those concepts are holding it back. It's just a few bad choices when it comes to level design and maybe story development in and of itself.
But it does leave you open to a next installment.
Yeah, I could definitely see myself coming back and hopefully, fingers crossed, they realize that you need to stay within the horror angles and claustrophobic concepts that were really enjoyed in the original one, Resident Evil 7.
Well then, there we have Aaron's review for Resident Evil Village.
Guys, as always, if you like this, please like, share, and subscribe. Did you guys get to play Resident Evil 7 and Village? I want to hear from you guys. How did you feel about them?
We plan on probably revisiting the Resident Evil series or franchise like in later videos, possibly picking apart retrospectives or other forms of media, because Resident Evil this is a franchise that's been taken over from TV now, films. Butchered and like very bad films, live action adaptations, but it's very expansive, like a lot of things that Capcom has been heavily doing. So be on the lookout for other Capcom related projects.
As always, I'm Aaron.
I'm Adam,
and this has been Seeking Media Productions. See you later.
All right. See you.